My name is Lee Parks, and today I'm going to talk to you about the mysterious world of Lean and Six Sigma. My company provides a wide variety of services to both the public and private sector, right from leadership coaching and strategic planning through to service delivery. But what we tend to do most with companies is help them improve their performance. Now, this is a very wide subject area, but inevitably we use the powerful tools from the Lean Six Sigma toolkit. However, herein lies the first problem. In my experience, Lean Six Sigma is one of the most misunderstood areas of business. And this creates a barrier to companies using these techniques. So in order to embrace them, companies need to understand exactly what Lean Six Sigma is. The two most common barriers I come across when using Lean Six Sigma techniques is that companies tend to associate them with lean manufacturing. And if they're from a service industry, that can be difficult for them to understand how those techniques can be transferred to the service industry. The second thing I experience is that companies say that they tried Lean Six Sigma and it failed. Now, there's a wide variety of reasons for this, but typically it's to do with the skills of the facilitator or the project lead. It's really important that whoever is leading on the improvement project in terms of engaging the staff is that they really know what they're doing, because that is a key area where it can fail. However, I think there's some more subtle reasons why Lean Six Sigma isn't used as widely in the UK as it could be. For example, YouTube videos on the subject are usually presented by Americans. Now, there's no disrespect to our friends across the water, but in some way I think UK companies disassociate themselves with Lean Six Sigma for that very reason. So why should you or I be concerned that Lean Six Sigma perhaps isn't as well understood in this country as it could be? Well, I'm going to give you 4 very compelling reasons, and this brings me on to the purpose for doing this video. So the 4 key benefits of using Lean Six Sigma effectively are: you can delight your customers, you can increase your revenue and earnings, reduce your costs, and supercharge your people, your staff. And you can do all this at the same time. So now we've painted the big picture of what Lean Six Sigma is and what the benefits are, let's get into the detail. Now, it's absolutely crucial that we understand one of the key principles, and that is that all work is a process. So what we're saying here is that day in, day out, your staff, your people are carrying out processes. A process is something that has a beginning and has an end. And essentially your company is a collection of key business processes. Now, some people really struggle with this principle, but it's important that we understand it before we move on. Okay, let's look into Lean Six Sigma in more detail. And to do that, I'm going to break it into the 2 parts. First of all, Lean. And this is the revelation. In one word, I've explained Lean. To help demonstrate that, imagine my hand as a process. It could be any process in your business. For example, dealing with an invoice. It starts here and it ends here. The fingers represent the key points in that process, typically where a member of staff does something that adds value to that process. The gaps in between the fingers represent the word that we haven't discussed yet, called waste, and we'll discuss waste in more detail shortly. So what we're trying to do with Lean is that we're trying to reduce the waste and move the value-adding steps together. So what you end up with is a much quicker process from end to end, hence Lean equals speed. So now let's talk about Six Sigma. Here's the revelation. Again, I'm just going to use one word to explain what Six Sigma is. Quite simply, it's accuracy. Okay, so this is my favourite way of describing Six Sigma and the concept of accuracy. So imagine that we are an archer and that we're firing at this target. Whilst we're quite good at hitting the target in the first place, there's quite a lot of variation on where these arrows land. And what Six Sigma looks at is how wide that variation is. So in this case, one of the furthest points out is here. And that's what Six Sigma does, is it looks at the amount of variation that's taking place in a process. The narrower the variation, the more capable or effective the process is. The wider variation that's taking place suggests that there needs to be improvement in the way that process is carried out. So separately, we've talked about Lean and Six Sigma. We now know that Lean equals speed and that Six Sigma is accuracy. But what happens when we combine these two? So let's look at this as a business problem. Our process is to pick up an arrow, load it quickly into a bow, fire it quickly into a target, achieving accurate results. What Lean thinking suggests is there are a number of factors that are affecting how quickly we can carry out that process. For example, if the arrows were placed 3 or 4 feet away from the archer, whereby the archer had to lean down to pick them up before he could place them into the bow, then Lean would suggest that is an inefficiency. It's a waste in the process. So simply by placing those arrows closer to the archer, it saves time and reduces waste in the process. And let's talk about accuracy and Six Sigma. So we still have the challenge of how to keep the bow steady to make it more accurate. And this is reliant upon the movement of the archer himself. So we could think of ways of reducing the movement of that bow, perhaps by making a structure that the bow could be attached to, thereby eliminating the movement of the archer himself. So by combining Lean thinking with Six Sigma measurement, we've created a much more efficient and effective process. No longer does the archer have to lean down to pick up his arrow to place it in a bow. And with the structure that we have built to keep the bow rigid, his shots are much more accurate every time. So hopefully, using that simple analogy, you can begin to think ways in which you can apply these principles to processes in your business to make them more efficient and effective. So to finish off this video, I'd like to come back to something that we spoke about earlier, and that's waste. I'd like to introduce you to a very good friend of mine called Tim Woods. First of all, T. T stands for the waste of transport. And to give you a simple example of this, if we were to send a message, we have at least a couple of choices. Firstly, that could be a letter. Secondly, that could be an email. Clearly, there's a lot more transport involved in delivering a letter to the recipient. And that's what this waste is all about, the waste of transporting that item from one place to another. With email, you avoid this transport waste because the recipient receives the message almost immediately. I stands for inventory, and you can think about inventory as things that are stacked on shelves that prevent us from either finding what we really want to find or things that we don't use on a regular basis. So this could be stock that is produced and is waiting to be sold, or it could be something as simple as leaflets, whereby you've ordered 500 because it's cheaper to order that many, but actually you only end up using 100 of those. The remaining 400 then become inventory, and that's a waste. M stands for movement, and if you go back to our analogy with the archer, you'll remember that he had to lean down to pick up his arrows before he could load them into the bow. That movement is a waste. W stands for waiting, and again, if we go back to our example using email or a letter, the recipient has to wait to receive that letter. That waiting time is seen as a waste in Lean thinking. The first O is over-processing. And this is where we do too much to something before it gets passed on to the next stage in the process. For example, it may be that we have to get 5 signatures to approve the writing of a cheque. Is this really necessary? Could we reduce that to perhaps 2 or even just 1 signature? If that were the case, then we'd be removing some of that over-processing waste. So the second O stands for overproduction, and this quite simply is where we produce too much of something that will never be used. Clearly there's a cost in producing the extra items, and the fact that they won't be used just adds to the wastage. D stands for defects, which quite simply are errors or mistakes that inevitably lead to rework to put them right. So a simple example of this is a mortgage offer being sent out which contains either mistakes or omissions. This would have to be returned for rework to be done for those figures to be corrected. This involves wasted time and effort. S stands for skills, and this relates to the people issues within an organisation. If we place people with the wrong skills into jobs, then we can easily see how this could lead to problems. These problems then represent waste. I do hope this short video has been helpful, perhaps in dispelling some misunderstandings you may have had around Lean Six Sigma. I really encourage you to delve deeper into the world of process management. Remember, it delights your customers, increases your revenue and earnings, reduces costs, and supercharges your people, all at the same time. For more information, you can check out my website and watch my other how-to videos which focus on Lean Six Sigma tools and techniques such as SIPOC, Value Stream Mapping, Ishikawa, 5S, and many others. Thanks for watching.